right. Thanks for listening while we take that short break here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And yeah, we're going to get back to your host.
Welcome back, everyone, to the New American Dream radio show. And our next guest is supposed to be Michael Annis, so since he didn't join the Zoom, I'm going to try adding him to the Skype, and we'll see what happens. We'll see if we can hear him, since that did not work with you, Abba, but we'll, I did find at least one thing to change that may have helped. So we're going to see if we can get Michael. Hello, Michael. Welcome to the New American Dream Poetry Spectacular.
Yeah. Well, it's good to be back on the New American Dream. So, hi, Chuck. Hi, everyone. I guess there's a lot of people there tonight. Pardon my hoarse voice. I'm not sure why, but it seems to have gotten hoarse over the last week. As I did the last in New American Dream. Well, who knows? I don't know. It could be a virus. Yeah. So the last time we all convened for a poetry spectacular, I think that's what we're calling this, Rex read a very striking poem that I offered to publish as a broadside. So he sent it to me, and we dithered back and forth about it, and he sent me a couple more poems. Then I remembered another poem of his that I had previously published, and I offered to include all of them in a chapbook. I sent you a link to that chapbook. Chuck, did you get it?
I have not had a chance to look at it.
You got the link?
Yeah.
Was it colored pretty blue or purple, indicating that it was live?
Okay. I don't remember.
I hope so.
Have in front of me.
Okay. So I just published this chapbook by our amigo y hermano, Rex Butters, and I've asked him to read one of the poems included in it. Its title is American Nero, and I first published it in Cost of Freedom. You remember Cost of Freedom, Chuck?
Yeah.
It was initiated, I think, around 2005 by your former co-host, Mike Palachuk.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, okay. So it was an anthology, and it was published in 2007.
Oh.
Rex and I had some discussion about it before publication. I mean now, not back then, but this current ghost in the machine about it before publication, to whether it was still relevant. And my position is that it's even more relevant now, as is the rest of the anthology, because it described political corruption that has grown even more formidable in our current time than it was back then. It was a collection of work. I won't go into it, much of it, but because it was long, 166 pages, 100 contributors nationally, including some from Canada. But yeah, it was a direct response to George W. Bush's illegal war upon Iraq. Anyway, so after he's finished reading, then I hope to read a poem that I wrote that was also in Cost of Freedom. And this poem that I wrote was, I first performed it at a Minuteman III missile silo in northern Colorado in 2003. So is Rex there?
Rex is here, but apparently this connection I made between Zoom and Skype isn't working quite as well as I thought, and everybody else missed that, although the listening public heard you, and I heard you. I I just made another change, so if you say something, let's find out if everybody can hear you.
Oh, okay. So something quick. Okay, so here is Rex.
Now? Okay.
Oh, we got him. Yeah.
Okay, good. So, you...
is Rex there?
Michael was telling us all about what you're doing, and he got me to look at this very interesting flip book, which I'm looking at right now. And
Michael did a nice job on that, didn't he?
He sure did. Yeah.
I love those illustrations.
Mm-hmm.
I've known a lot of crazy artists in my life, Rex. I've made it my mission in life to pick up crazy artists.
Okay.
Do a lot of people owe you money?
Everybody owes me money.
The club.
I know. It's like, okay, when does a labor of love become the enslavement of entanglement among those who have no money?
Well.
Oh my God. I feel like we're in a vacuum here, Chuck.
Uh-oh.
Rex, I introduced your American Nero poem, and I said, well, I didn't say this, but I'm going to say it now. So we had, like I said, 100 contributors, poems and stories and essays, and, Mike Palachek, I put in some of it. Not only did I publish it, I co-edited it with Mike and a woman by the name of Whitney Trettine, who was a student at the time. And this publication is just runs the gamut of cultural creativity, which Rex's poem, I illustrated that in the anthology, and I brought that illustration into the chapbook that you're looking at now, Chuck. And the poem is called American Nero.
Mm-hmm.
It's about George W. Bush, okay?
Uh-huh.
We had some discussion about it before publication, like I said, as to whether it was still relevant. I think it's just a strong, strong poem. It's metaphorical, allegorical, whatever. It speaks not only in its own time, but it speaks to the future and what we might be grappling with, or what we have been grappling with, as far as politicians in the United States.
All right.
But it could be anywhere, any tyrant anywhere. So.
Well, let's hear it. Rex, are you going to read it for us?
Yes.
Well, I am.
Okay.
Chuck, if you could join Sherman in setting the way back for 2005. This goes back to George Bush.
Mm-hmm.
The one Hunter S. Thompson always referred to as the boy president.
Okay.
And this is about his response to the Katrina mess.
Oh.
This is called American Nero. He strums guitar in San Diego. Monkey mugs for the once prestigious Washington Press Corps. Laughing with a country star. His month-long vacation nearly over. Dragging their children, those children alive. Citizen survivors in garbage. Mississippi towns, soggy kindling. Fire stations flooded. Buildings burned for lack of water. Sweltering citizens parched. Face down, a young girl half under grimy water floats. Her pink hair clip still in her hair. No ripples, submerged. American Nero strums guitar in San Diego, draws cheers and applause from an adoring audience at a naval base in Southern California. Dark, rank-smelling house, sticky Mississippi mud porch, slick living room floor, Crumpled woman still holds snake fight stick. Black and white dress. Bodies rotting quickly in the heat. Rats feasting on your loved ones, dead in the street. American Nero strumming guitar during the Gulf Coast floods. This time, not wearing phony ranch hand duds. If you're someone who's having to struggle between food and medicine, those days are over, he says to seniors in Southern California. Children rest in ration boxes. Hospital patients stretchered on airport baggage claim floor. Nurses weep, leaving dead patients. Faces the color of mud and brown water, 4 months old, 6 months old, they died right here in America, waiting for food. They're tattered dead in lawn chairs. Bodies in refrigerated trucks used to ship bananas. Sick, poor, black, old, and left behind. Stroke victims in laundry baskets. Treated like an occupied enemy. Race, age, and bank book determined the survivors. As official excuses, transparent lies swarm like a thick cloud of blood-sucking flies. American Nero in sunny San Diego strums his guitar, eats cake in Arizona with John McCain, while sewage-soaked survivors cling to life in rising water atop cars. Rescue efforts pulled back to focus on looters. Save the stuff. Kill anybody moving it. We can't show the world we no longer value property. The self-righteous wind-winged bellows shoot on sight. But the looting began long before the storm. Public funds shore up defense contractors' bank accounts. Levees left in tatters. Narrow-minded numbskull, king of vacations. He flew high above. He looked out a window. A prepared statement of concern, then returned to the golf course. There, devastation and misery, a fly-by photo op prop. Bond, Biloxi, Maxie, Star, Thomasville, Gulfport, New Orleans, Mali, Somalia, Sudan. Survivors, their names washed away, all they are now is just refugees. Will they receive the $200,000 to $300,000 given to each family relocating off Gaza paid by U.S. taxes? Will the U.S. government's $75 million bribe offer, refused by Iraqi Sunnis, be chipped into the Gulf Relief Fund? 2 days after Katrina hit, the federal rescue leader hadn't heard about the 15,000 desperate, dehydrated, hungry, angry, dying in the New Orleans Convention Center. From Mobile, American Nero smiled, "Brownie, you're doing a heck of a job. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your streaming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed, to me, that I may feed them to my greedy death god," American Nero sang and twanged, laughing. Mississippi John Hurt, rain your sweet finger-pick tears on the people. Charlie Patton, roar their frustration and pain. Memphis Minnie, sing about when the levee breaks. It's 1927 again.
Whoa. Yeah.
Wow, that was fantastic.
It was.
Amen. So, as the publisher of this poem, which I feel like what I really like about is when poets reach back into the past to gather information to let people know that we're living in this kind of time continuum where things keep getting repeated over and over. and the game, the con, is awaiting for the next generation, which does not know these historical precedents, so that the game can be worked upon them again, and to keep them as ignorant of history as possible. So one of the things that I found beautiful about Rex's poem was his references to the three blues singers at the very end, bringing them into the poem and showing the readers, including myself as reader at the time, showing the readers that it's just a rerun, that we've been protesting these things, we've been talking about these things, about poverty, about wealth as being the essential to control, and so forth, for decades and generations. So those three last stanzas were some of the best I had read when I got all of the submissions in from, I mean, they knocked me out. So anyway, thanks, Rex, for reading that and
thanks for
humoring my insistence on reading it. So I have a poem of my own that I'd like to read. Anybody want to talk about it? Does anybody want to talk about Rex's poem? I understand that structure.
A couple of things about it. Wow, I had forgotten that you said you wrote that in 2007. I was actually picturing Rex having just written that because it was published, like it was written yesterday, right?
It was published in 2007. It was, when was it written? 2003? 2004? Right after Katrina, whenever that was, right, Rex?
Yeah, during Katrina.
Yeah, during Katrina, okay. So it wasn't published in Cost of Freedom until 2007, which was an anthology.
Well, that's where Bush was at the time. He was avoiding the disaster scene and hanging out with Republican donors in San Diego, while the other things you saw, other people are starving, they're drowning, and he's just having a great time here on the West Coast.
Wow. When I was thinking that you had written it like recently, was picturing Gaza and the war, all the new stuff. It's like, it's all the same, it's like you fast forward, all the same stuff's going on and you can't tell one from the other.
I know. Well, that's when, again, Michael had me read this. I realized that in describing the American refugees, doesn't that sound familiar? And
right.
Exactly.
It shows the world we're not hypocrites. We treat our own people this way. We don't go out and just destroy other people and nations. We destroy our own people.
Right. Right.
Through indifference and lack of care.
Well, and how that it didn't
propaganda. That's
it might inspire change or some kind of consciousness in people. But not only is that not, I mean, it might happen on some level, but on a big level, things just seem to get worse.
Well,
right?
There's two writing political poetry. I mean, especially when you don't mention the person or the event, it's relevant year after year after year, and it's a sad statement. But stuff doesn't change.
Okay, so we have the George W. Bush administration thank for Samuel Alito on the Supreme Court, who is now wreaking havoc along with Clarence Thomas upon the Constitution of the United States. And George W. Bush's father is the one who brought Clarence Thomas onto the Supreme Court.
Oh, yeah.
We have that to look at also. And then we have followed with, of course, Trump's three and Mitch McConnell's denial of Barack Obama being able to appoint a Supreme Court justice.
Yeah.
It's very lopsided. So these historical, I call them historical crimes, either commission or omission, they have a tendency to follow you around and to make it worse in the future. That's why it's so important to stand up to them now, right?
right? For truthful little right? Poetry is not good. It helps, but we need more.
I had trouble hearing that, Richard. Can you try again?
I said that if we can change. Poetry is not in and of itself going to be enough to make changes. It's going to be more than that, which involves being active in politics.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
I think it was Neil Young who said, "Just singing a song won't change the world."
Well, W.H. Auden said that poetry changes nothing, but I disagree with W.H. Auden. I think it does change people, and I think that's why it can be dangerous. But if we don't know what has preceded us, you can't just look at the world and write about some kind of romantic vision of what it is. You have to be able to look back on what's preceded you, what's come before you, and try to. I talked to David Ray about it one time, and I said, yeah, well, it looks like our poems are just going to be in some library or in some college somewhere. And he told me that I shouldn't be so cynical about that, because what it's doing is it's influencing the minds of people who do have an ability to go out and change the world. So I had to look at that and say, yeah, One time I was at the Naropa Institute in Boulder, and I sat in on one of Ann Waldman's classes. I was with Miguel Algarin, who was the founder of the Nuyorican Poets Cafe. He was also a professor at Rutgers. And he and I went up there together, and we did one of Ann Waldman's class groupings. We weren't part of the class. She brought us in as poets and speakers. And the word that I left them with when it was my turn was, not a single one of you sitting in here is going to be Allen Ginsberg. But what you can do is you can take your poetics out into the world at whatever job you end up in, and you can influence people from there just by your and sometimes that's better. Sometimes that really is better. It's like carpenters building a house rather than an architect designing a house. It's fine. It's good. Whatever you have to do to bring about change. So once again, disagreeing with W.H. Auden, I say, yeah, poetry does change things. And only a cynic would believe that it doesn't, or somebody who is heartless, without heart. So that's why I've kept doing it for the last, the first chapbook that I published came out in 1981. Long time ago. And I have published and written voluminously since then. So, yeah. Anyway, thanks, Rex.
Oh, thank you, Michael.
Well, if I can, I just want to chime in a couple other things. It's like, how we all deal with censorship on one form or another. I just had a big censorship thing, and constantly dealing with it. And, Linda and Mikey with Frank Moore was censored all the time. And I think, we know this, that it's actually, when we get censored, then we know how important our work is, because that's how powerful it is, that they have to censor us, that they're so afraid of what we're saying. I mean, it's actually a big compliment. It's maddening, and it's like really, really enraging. But, the silver lining is that how powerful that is when they're trying to censor you. Your work's powerful then. But the irony is it can't get out there if it's censored, but it's, so it's one of those things that you have to grapple with.
Is that Ava? Ava, is that you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, actually it is getting out there. We're doing it right now. And every time you go out into public and perform it, no matter the no matter the size of your audience. Mm-hmm. It makes no difference. If you influence one person who hopefully can multiply that influence in their own life, then you have done a good job. You've done a job that you've needed to do. Mm. I've never had a book on the bestseller list.
Influencing and who's hearing our work.
When I gave a copy of Cost of Freedom to Amy Goodman, her eyes popped out. Hmm. She couldn't believe it, what she was holding in her hands. And I had some of the most influential people of the time who gave me testimonials for that book, including Pete Seeger and Harry Belafonte and Ralph Nader and Noam Chomsky. They all said what a grand book it was, and Howard Zinn contributed to it. And so did Kurt Vonnegut. I mean, so yeah, you just have to keep doing it. I mean, great. When I get censored, it just energizes me because, like Alva said, you know that you're doing something important that they don't want spread around. Don't spread those ideas around. They're dangerous.
Right. We have had a lot of experience with censorship with Frank. And I would say that we looked at it that way, too, that we thought that what we're doing, we must be on to something if they want to shut us up. And to this day, they kicked Frank off of Vimeo. We had hundreds of videos, but Mikey still had an account, so some of Frank's videos were still there. And we recently discovered that you can't find Frank on Vimeo. So we pay for the account, and it's all the things are there. But if you search for Frank's name, you can't find anything. It's as if he's not there.
That's called shadow banning.
Right. Yeah. So there's that censorship. But the other thing that we have also run into more recently that has kind of blown our minds somewhat is we moved to Idaho a few years ago and we lived in Berkeley, for 40 years. I was there almost 50 years. And so we have all these very liberal artistic friends, and yet they couldn't deal with the fact that we would move to a red state. They couldn't deal with the fact that we had friends that voted for Trump. Mm-hmm. They couldn't believe that we didn't hate Trump. And what we people that were gay said they couldn't even bear the thought that we were living in Idaho because you can't be gay in Idaho, which isn't true. Our neighbor has a gay sister. But in any case, the thing that blew our minds was how rigid people can be without, I thought I didn't want to move to Idaho because what do I have in common with people in Idaho? And yet, circumstance got us here, against what we actually wanted, but here we are. And it forced us to not judge people, to live what we always said we believed, which is that we are all connected to each other, and you just have to live as if you believe that. And what we have found is we're surrounded by our neighbors who are very religious people, and that's the first thing they'll tell you about themselves. My faith is what's important to me. My family, here's Mikey and I with no family. It's us, renegade outlaws, and people didn't judge us. They embraced us. They dealt with us as people, and it's it was a risk. It was like jumping without a net and not knowing what was going to happen. And but to see the way people we know respond to that, it just blows our mind. We can't. It's hard to not be discouraged by people that we thought for 30, 40 years, whenever we'd read about, I'd read Frank's poems, we're all with you. And then when put to the test of just not judging people, being open to other thoughts and other things, they can't deal with it. And it just, we still don't really know what to make of that, to tell you the truth.
Well, it's like the left now is what the right used to be, or how we used to perceive the right is now what the left is. And it's like the things that have just been inverted and turned on their heads. And it's just, I mean, these times are so strange, and that's a good point. I hear what you're saying. I've experienced similar things in red states, and it does, confront your own judgments and your own biases and, your own shadow parts of yourself that maybe you were doing something you didn't even realize you were doing in your judgments. And then, you come across these people and they're a pleasant surprise of how loving and accepting they are when you may have thought that they wouldn't be.
And they walk into our house, and our house is filled with our art, pictures, nudity, eroticism. I mean, and like they've never seen anything like it. And then they look at it, but it's like us showing it to them, so they accept it. It's like, oh, okay, and it's like, I was like,
That's the shadow part you were talking about.
Yeah, it's like I didn't expect people to be that way, but we were forced to trust that they would, and people just keep coming through for us. And it's really something to deal with.
You just said something that I think is a key there. You said you were forced to trust that they would. If we expect more from the people around us, we can get it. Not every time, but if you expect nothing from the people around you, well, that's what you're going to get. You have to embrace the differences. There are people I disagree with vehemently, but I am proud to consider my friends. And there's so much more to life and to interacting with people and to loving each other. You have to expect that people are going to respond, and they probably will.
That's the thing. Like I always would notice with Frank, because I would be the one that would have to interpret what he said or like spell him out. And we would be talking to someone, and I knew what he was saying, and I would think, how can you possibly think you can say that to this person? But I had to say it because I'm spelling him out. And every single time, the person would go to that place that Frank was like, kind of acting like they already were, even though I wouldn't, so I realized he doesn't look down at people. He looks into people in a deeper way and expects them to be there with him, and they always are, so that's kind of what you're saying. That's what we've been forced to do.
So Chuck,
you were trying to get a word in there, and I kind of.
Hey, this is all really interesting, and I appreciate it. Yeah, and I agree. But I'm going to have to be going here. I only have X amount of time that I can even, give you this tonight, which is unfortunate. But so from the same anthology, like I said, I'd written a poem that was called Peace Nuns, and it was first performed at a missile silo action that we took back in 2003, I think it was, where various groups from across the country came together to the missile silos, the Minuteman III missile silos in northern Colorado. And I read a poem that I had written that was in tribute to the three nuns, Carol Gilbert, Jackie Hudson, Ardith Platt, and also the Berrigan brothers, because they were being sentenced for going into these missile silos and performing this ritual of protest. And so I wrote it for them. It's called peace nuns. All three of them were elderly at the time, but they still kept on doing what they needed to do, what they saw as a vision of light to bring to this world about nuclear war and nuclear arms. So this particular poem was published in the Silo Inspection Reports, July 26, Saturday, 2003, at the Colorado's Minuteman III missile silos. So, if I may, peace nuns. None of them, I corresponded with them while they were in jail, these three nuns, particularly Carol Gilbert. Anyway, what I'm saying, it, of course, is metaphorical, but it's based on what they did, and it was based on their viewpoints of why they were doing it, and the reaction by society to what they were doing. So as threats go, not only were they censored, they were incarcerated for doing what they did. Yeah. Okay, here we go. Age-old nun, bearing flowers, her dark habit. Upon her cane, lugging grail and knife, her small dry host, through soft prayers and tears humbly picks the lock, swings open the gate, enters illegally one fortress among thousands inherently illegal in the rights of man and the rights of Earth's children, radioactive, shocked, awed for generations to come. She takes the law of humanity into old, painful hands, blood protector of the future, cutting barbed wire, chain-link fence, crawls through, a divine mole on all fours. She hobbles across rock, reinforced concrete and steel of the missile site by night, feels for her vein, wields a knife, and there lets her own blood of the sacrament, her life taking a hammer, railing against power, her gentle heart beating swords into plowshares, smoking guns into peacemakers. Not a soul watching. No ego drives or runs her. She chants, she sings, partakes of the Lord's Supper, again bearing her hammer defiantly, striking down forked tongues against lying cross ties of the railroad track. There, with thin arthritic fingers, paints her life's work, blood drawn upon the steel lid of the Minuteman silo, her psalm rising to heaven. Dear God, let thy will and my will be one. These weapons of mass destruction shall never be loosed as alms in my name by warmongers claiming peace while spilling your blood in the blood of murdered children. One voice threatening the security of holy imperialist crusade America. A voice knowing whether accomplished or not, each person must act alone, bringing peace signs in blood to beget a red rosary. For she is called the enemy, threatening a cold country, the feared jihad terrorist targeting homeland security. And soldiers are ordered before they surround her. You shall be prompt. You shall be professionally brutal. You shall be overwhelming. Your will shall be done. You shall devastate the situation. There shall be no bargains, no hostage negotiations. You shall shoot to kill, to maim, to incapacitate, and, as if by scimitar, to decapitate if necessary. You shall not be merciful. No compassion extended. No reprieve shall be given. No excuses accepted. No discussions conducted. And most importantly, no victims spared. Soldiers protecting a flabby, fearful, condescending, money-worshipping, ignorant, hypocritical, spoon-fed nation from her spirit on fire and blossoming in imminent threats of peace, love, and humility. No prisoners shall be taken, and there shall be no survivors.
Well, like everyone was saying earlier, how much of that are we hearing today?
Yeah. Really.
Well, I wish we heard more. I don't know.
Oh, good. That's what I was going to ask, because I've heard people saying that a lot of people don't even really know all the stuff that's going on.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like we don't read mainstream news or watch any of that. So we're constantly hearing about what's actually going on. But I hear people saying, Mikey checks on his homepage, what the headlines are. And the question comes up, do people know how dangerous things are with the kind of wars that our country is getting us involved in?
Mm.
They're too busy being divided of, are you a male, Linda? Are you a man? Is Rex a girl? That's the kind of stuff people are hung up on. You can't come in unless you have a vaccine. Dividing us amongst ourselves over silly, petty, ridiculous, childish things. That's what people are on.
Yeah, and it's.
So when I was in college, I knew a kid. It was a friend of mine. That he would go to Germany, he and his brother, very, very smart people, they'd go to Germany in the summer time for classes there. Mm-hmm. And they would, at universities in Germany. And his father was in the military, was like a colonel or something in the Air Force, the United States Air Force. This was long ago. And he said to him, the father said to the son was very much an activist as we were. And the father said to the son, why are you protesting that? Don't you know that we've already planned 25 years beyond that? You're protesting something that was planned 25 years in the past. Mm. And for me, that was terrifying to realize that how little, that's to emphasize this thing about we really don't know what's going on, because we don't. And it's a constant reaction to things that have already transpired.
Indeed.
But yeah, the real, and it just gets worse. Anyway, so enough. I've got to go. Thanks for having me on, Chuck. Hi, everybody, and bye, everybody. Thanks for reading your poem, Rex.
Sure, Michael.
Bye, Michael.
Thank you, Michael.
See you next time. Bye-bye.
Hey, all right. Bye-bye.
Bring us some good news, Michael.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, okay. Cool.
Promise.
All right. Bye-bye.
We have 11 minutes left to divide up. So I'm going to try to... Richard, I'd like you to go next, and you probably only have time for maybe 2 limericks. But
no problem at all. I picked out, considering, I write about things that happened in the past as well.
Okay.
But this is called "They Were Not Human." It's a little introduction. I'll read a little introduction, and then it's 2 stanzas, so this will go quick. The United States dropped 2 atomic bombs on Japan at the end of World War II. Some maintain this saved American lives. However, the Russians were about to enter the war. Japan had no viable navy or air force. The end was near without our use of nuclear weapons. Logically, a Japanese civilian represented something less than human that we could exterminate without regret or consequence, at least so we thought. Okay, here's the two stances. We'd already beaten Japan, but the A-bomb was Truman's plan to tell Russian Reds, we'll cut you to shreds. And that's how the Cold War began. We flashed two target civilians and killed 0.2 of a million of subhuman trash just burned into ash. But we're in no way reptilian.
Oh. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Wow.
Anyway, I'm done.
Thank you. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Richard.
That was great. Yeah. Frankie, do you have one more?
Thank you, Richard. It was like you mentioned a very sad chapter in the history.
Yeah.
Thank you. So at first I planned to read like a different poem, but since we mentioned like censorship and just criticism, I want to read the poem, like how discouraging it can be. Nothing marvelous awaits in front of me. It makes me leave the world of fantasy. Now there is gloomy burden in the front. This useless life is not to be that grand. Discouragement and loneliness around, all torn apart. I seek the frozen ground. You see the helplessness in my cold eyes. I tried to run in spotlight. I found no disguise. A deadly weapon, be a trap around my neck. No chance to get my simple living back. No person understands my deepest fears, except the girl who's late for sad 6 years. No aim, no inspiration, no more hopes, no family or friends, a knot of ropes. Just lies and selfish tries for more control, manipulations to make my mind being torn. Dismembered, raped, my soul's betrayed. How come I let my spirit being tamed? They took my kindness for weakness, as greedy bugs don't know uniqueness. They're shaming me for being me, but their lives are nothing they could be. These critics have no talent and no soul. Their spite and jealousy is like black hole. To shock the crowd with great escape, I cut the wires, got rid of sticky tape. They prisoned me in heavy metal chains. In breaking it, I had to sacrifice my brains.
Wow.
That's great.
Really good. Yeah.
Good, Frankie. Frankie, is your name Francis?
No, actually, my real name is Catherine, but my stage name is Frankie because I used to play Frankenfooter in Rocky Horror Picture Show like years ago. And then it like just became second nature. So and then I was singing so I used this Frankie as a stage name.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay. Linda, do you have something short to share so that we can leave room for Ava to read one more at the end?
Yeah, I think so. It's an upbeat poem.
Okay.
It's called Too Late. It says, for Barbara Smith's 70th birthday. Frank wrote it on Friday, June 29th, 2001.
Huh.
It is too late for them to defeat us. We have made it to the gravy years. We have lived rich lives within a deep web of tribal community relationships, deep into shamanistic rituals, playing, surrendering to the magic without limits, sitting on the mat in the universal room of hidden imagination, feeding everybody who comes in. A magical feast of contact, connecting flesh rituals, growing, working the garden together, walking together within small circles of evolution, of risks, dangers, trust, deep pleasures. Yes, my fellow playmate, they have failed to take the riches of living away from us. Sure, they raped us, tortured us, pretended we were just feeble-minded, silly foam. But we have transformed all that into our web of change. Damn, ain't that what life, art, magic is all about anyway? Now it's too late for them. They can kill us, put us in prison, take everything, everybody from us, erase us from memory, but we would still have our life, our changes, our melting into the universal tribal body. Their only hope is us taking our lives back by doubting, by stopping playing, touching, enjoying. But fat chance, we're having too much fun. Ah, yes, my dear, we are in the gravy years, and the gravy is rich, hot, and spicy, just right to be poured over winter squash.
All right. Yes. What a wonderful attitude toward life. Yes.
Yeah.
And it's a good summation for all of us that have, really been aging a lot the last, 50 years. That, we're most of us in here are mature people that.
When Frank wrote that poem, we thought 70 was old.
Yeah, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And here we all are.
Yeah. Right? How terribly strange to be 70. Oh, no. Ava, you want to close us out?
I have a perfect poem to close us out. It's I think it matches what we're talking about here. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. A couple of you guys, Rex has heard this before. Chuck, you probably heard it before too, but I don't think the rest of you have. When I got kicked out of the Women's Vegan Book Club, it wasn't over meat or books. I didn't get upset. She just said I didn't fit in with the group. Maybe I shouldn't have stayed so quiet. I should have spoken up more about the burgers burning in kitchens, ovens, microwaves, scorching earth crust, and screaming animals over murder. I cry over hurts for cows and slave plantations, corporate personhood and profits for prisons, crowds fed up with wage slaves for Happy Meals and bombs dropped over God terrors, night tremors from wargasms, Alzheimer's over vaccines and chemtrails, Parkinson's aluminum frying, fluoride killing third eyes, first eyes just saying no. No genocide from pharmaceutical misogynists, no prick stabbing mercury gun diseases into babies, old ladies, gents, or you would be wise to get up, stand up for your Bill of Rights, Constitution. Go ahead. Just do it.
Yes.
Yes.
Right?
A perfect.
That's another oldie but goodie.
Yes.
I wrote that a long time ago.
A perfect way to end things here. It has been such a pleasure having all of you, every single one, contributed to this show in just so many fascinating ways. It really it resonated with me. I am so grateful that all of you joined me on the show tonight, and I hope you had as good a time as I did.
Yeah, thank you, Chuck.
Thank you, Chuck. I mean, you put it all together and doing all the work, and here we are spouting off. But you put it, we're here because of you. So thank you. And we're so glad you enjoy this so much, because if you didn't, it wouldn't happen, so I'm so happy that you love doing this.
Well,
it gives us yet another opportunity to be censored. What an opportunity.
Right. Well, it is my honor and privilege to have you join me on this. So,
yeah.
Absolutely.
When's the next one?
I'm not sure when the next fifth Thursday month is, but you can be sure I will invite all of you, because this I really enjoy these, and it really interesting discussions. You know, we get pretty deep. And
Thank you for listening to Revolution